I don't even know where to begin, but this is something I need to get off my chest. I am autistic, and like many others on the spectrum, I stim. It's not just a behavior, it's a way for me to process the world around me, to cope with overwhelming sensory input, and to calm myself when everything gets too much. Sometimes it's hand flapping, sometimes it's rocking, sometimes it's tapping, or even fiddling with something. It's part of who I am. But tonight was different. My mother has always known I'm autistic. She's seen me struggle, seen me stim to manage anxiety or stress. She's always claimed to understand, or at least she pretended to. But tonight, as I was stimming at the dinner table, trying to ground myself after a long, draining day, something snapped inside of her. I was simply moving my hand, just tapping it on the table. It's not loud, it's not disruptive, but she suddenly looked at me with this cold, intense glare. "Stop, now," she demanded, her voice sharp. I paused, confused. I always thought she understood. This wasn't something I could just stop on command. But she kept staring at me, her face growing darker, more frustrated. And then, in a moment that I will never forget, she did something I never imagined she could. She grabbed my wrist and pulled my hand forcefully, pulling me toward the kitchen counter. She shoved my hand down onto the cutting board with a harsh thud. Her eyes locked onto mine as she leaned in, her breath shaky and tense. "Stop stimming, or I'll cut your fingers off." I couldn't breathe. My mind went completely blank. This wasn't a threat I could just ignore, not like the angry words or hurtful comments I've heard before. This was something real, something terrifying. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my body freezing in place, unable to move to speak, to process what was happening. She was serious. Her words were like ice, and the way she looked at me, it was like she was daring me to keep going, daring me to resist her. The cutting board beneath my hand seemed to grow colder, and my fingers felt as if they were glued to it, trapped in place. My mind raced. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight back somehow, but I couldn't. I felt small, like a child again, in the grip of something far beyond my control. "You'll stop, won't you?" She demanded again, her voice low and threatening. I just nodded, terrified. I could barely make a sound, let alone explain to her how much stimming means to me. How, when she took that part of me away, it felt like she was taking away a piece of my soul. I didn't even try to argue. I couldn't. I just sat there, frozen, trying to keep it together as my mother released my hand, her grip loosening as she turned away. What hurts the most is not just the threat itself, but the way it made me feel, like I wasn't a person anymore. Like my needs, my way of existing, meant nothing to her. My stimming was just an inconvenience to her, something to be controlled, something to be silenced. How do you explain to someone that this thing that helps you cope, isn't just a bad habit, but something you need to survive in a world that doesn't understand you? I never thought I would be afraid of my own mother. But in that moment, I was. It's going to take me a while to get over this. I don't think I'll ever forget the look in her eyes. I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of my hand pressed against that cutting board. I don't know what's next, but I just needed to say this. Update. Thank you to everyone who commented and sent kind messages after my original post. It's been a few days, and I've been trying to process everything that happened. The outpouring of support has been overwhelming, and I honestly didn't expect it. Some of you asked for an update, so here it is. But I'm still working through a lot of this, so please bear with me. I've been avoiding my mom since that night. It feels like everything has shifted, and I can't look at her the same way anymore. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around her, like she could turn on me again at any moment. Every time I hear her voice, my heart starts racing, and I just want to get away. I didn't expect to feel so scared of her, but I do. It's hard to even be in the same room with her, let alone have a conversation. I keep thinking about how easily she turned from a loving parent to someone who threatened to hurt me, someone who didn't care about what I was going through. Since the incident, I've tried to talk to her, or at least approach her about it, but it's been a mess. Every time I bring it up, she either ignores it completely or brushes it off like it wasn't a big deal. The other day, I gently mentioned how much that moment hurt me, how it still feels like it's eating away at me. Her response, "You need to stop being so sensitive. It was just a threat. I didn't mean it. I tried to explain that words like that don't just go away, that what she said to me wasn't something I could just forget. But she shut me down, saying I was overreacting. I won't lie, I felt like I was losing my mind. How can you be so dismissive about something so serious? How can you dismiss your own child's pain like that? I don't think she fully understands what stimming means for me or how dangerous her behavior was. I honestly don't think she wants to. I've sent her some articles and tried to explain my needs, but she hasn't really read them. I think in her mind I'm just being difficult or defiant instead of struggling with something real. I don't know if it's denial or just ignorance, but it's like she doesn't want to see how her actions affected me. One small but positive thing that happened is that I've started reaching out to other family members for support. I spoke to my aunt, who's always been more understanding of my autism, and she's been a huge comfort. She listens without judgment, and she gets it. She even offered to help me find therapy or a support group to deal with what happened. That's been a lifeline, because I honestly feel like I can't keep going through this alone. Some people have suggested going no contact with my mom, but I'm not ready for that yet. Part of me still wants to believe things can improve, but I'm scared that if I stay in this environment, I'm just going to keep getting hurt. At this point, I'm trying to take it day by day. I'm giving myself space to heal and trying to figure out how I want to move forward. I'll keep you all posted as I figure things out, but right now I'm still feeling really shaken. I just needed to update you all because your comments and support really did help, and I don't want to leave this hanging. Final update. I want to thank everyone who supported me through this. I've been reading your comments, and many of you have offered incredible advice, shared your own stories, and provided emotional support that really helped me get through this. This post is going to be the last update because, well, a lot has happened since I last shared, and I've had time to process things. To start, I've made some tough decisions, and I think I'm finally understanding what I need to do for my own mental health. After the last update, things didn't get better with my mom. In fact, they only seemed to get worse. Every time I tried to talk to her about what happened, she'd either minimize it, pretend like it never happened, or accuse me of being too sensitive. I had hoped at first that with enough patience she'd come around, but it became clear that she just couldn't or wouldn't see things from my perspective. The worst part was that she never apologized. Not once. She still hasn't. I think part of me had been holding out hope that maybe someday she'd realize how wrong she was, how deeply hurt I was by her actions, and that she'd at least try to make amends. But that's not happening, and I've come to terms with that. It took me a while, but I finally realized that I couldn't be subjecting myself to an environment where I feel unsafe, unheard, and unloved. I shouldn't have to constantly walk on eggshells around my own mother, fearing that I might be hurt again, even if it's not physical. The emotional toll was starting to eat away at me. I was anxious all the time, and the anxiety from that night just kept building up until I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I made the decision to distance myself from her for a while. It wasn't easy, and it's still hard, but I knew I had to put my own mental and emotional health first. I told her I needed space to heal, and that I couldn't continue to be around her, that she wasn't willing to acknowledge the harm she caused. She wasn't happy, of course, and I don't think she fully understands that I'm doing. She's still angry, and she's still defensive. But that's not my problem anymore. In the time since I've taken a step back, I've started focusing more on myself. I've been getting therapy, talking through everything that happened, and just trying to rebuild my sense of self. It hasn't been easy, but I'm making progress. I've also been leaning more on my aunt and a few close friends who've been supportive from the start. Their encouragement has helped me find some peace. I don't know what the future holds with my mom. I've accepted that. For now, our relationship is fractured. Maybe it'll get better in time, but I'm not waiting around for it to magically fix itself. I'm not willing to keep sacrificing my well-being for someone who can't offer me the empathy or support I need. I guess, in the end, what I've learned is that sometimes you have to protect yourself, even if it means stepping away from people you thought you could rely on. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I don't want to feel like I'm wrong for just being who I am. And if that means cutting ties with people who aren't willing to see me for who I truly am, then so be it. Thank you all again for your support. I hope my story can maybe help someone else who's going through something similar. Remember, you deserve to be heard, you deserve to feel safe, and you don't owe anyone your peace. Take care, everyone.